welcome back to Bible Quizzes. We have 80 questions today. Let's get started. 1. In which book of the Bible can you find the prophecy of a flying scroll? Malachi, Ezekiel, Zechariah, or Jeremiah? Zechariah 5, 1-2. I looked again, and there before me was a flying scroll. He asked me, "What do you see?" I answered, "I see a flying scroll, 20 cubits long and 10 cubits wide." 2. Who was the mother of Abijah, the king of Judah? Maacah, Chelub, Jephthah, or Zeruiah? Maacah. 1 Chronicles 15, 9-10. King Asa also deposed his grandmother, Maacah, from her position as queen mother because she had made a repulsive image for the worship of Asherah. Asa cut it down, broke it up, and burned it in the Kidron Valley. 3. What did the Lord tell Jeremiah to buy from his cousin? A potter's jar, a field, a yoke of oxen, or a house? A field. Jeremiah 32, 7-9. Hanamel, son of Shalem, your uncle, is going to come to you and say, "Buy my field at Anathoth, because as nearest relative it is your right and duty to buy it." Then, just as the Lord had said. 4. Which of the 12 tribes of Israel was not allotted any land? Simeon, Dan, Levi, or Judah? Levi. Joshua 13:14. But to the tribe of Levi he gave no inheritance, since the food offerings presented to the Lord, the God of Israel, are their inheritance as he promised them. 5. Who was the father of Goliath, the giant slain by David? Lami, Elhanan, Rapha, or unnamed? Unnamed. 1 Samuel 17:4. A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. His height was 6 cubits and a span. 6. In which book of the Bible does the prophet Hosea mention the story of Baal Peor? Deuteronomy, Numbers, Hosea, or Leviticus? Hosea 9:10. When I found Israel, it was like finding grapes in the desert. When I saw your ancestors, it was like seeing the early fruit on the fig tree. But when they came to Baal Peor, they consecrated themselves to that shameful idol and became as vile as the thing they loved. 7. Who tore his clothes when he heard Jesus' declaration of being the Messiah? Caiaphas, Barnabas, Moab, or Nicodemus? Caiaphas. Matthew 26:63-65. But Jesus remained silent. The high priest said to him, "I charge you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God. You have said so." 8. According to the book of Revelation, how many angels were holding the 4 winds of the earth? 7, 12, 4, or 11? Revelation 7:1. After this I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding back the 4 winds of the earth to prevent any wind from blowing on the land, or on the sea, or on any tree. 9. What did King Ahaziah of Israel send to consult after he fell through the lattice? The god of Ekron, priests of Baal, prophet of Elijah, or his counselors? The god of Ekron. 2 Kings 1:2. Now Ahaziah had fallen through the lattice of his upper room in Samaria and injured himself. So he sent messengers, saying to them, "Go and consult Beelzebub, the god of Ekron, to see if I will recover from this injury." 10. How many sons did Gideon have? 72, 71, 77, or 70? 77. Judges 8:30. He had 70 sons of his own, for he had many wives. 11. Who was the father of Methuselah, the man who lived the longest recorded lifespan in the Bible? Lamech, Ahasuerus, Zechariah, or Enosh? Lamech. Genesis 5:25-27. When Methuselah had lived 187 years, he became the father of Lamech. After he became the father of Lamech, Methuselah lived 782 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Methuselah lived a total of 969 years and then he died. 12. What was the name of the priest who offered a blessing to Abraham after his victory over the kings? Melchizedek, Aaron, Eli, or Phinehas? Melchizedek. Genesis 14:18-19. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out the bread and wine. He was a priest of God Most High, and he blessed Abram, saying, Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. 13. How many years did Solomon take to build the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem? 20, 13, 7, or 11? Seven. 1 Kings 6:38. In the 11th year in the month of Bul, the 8th month, the temple was finished in all its details according to its specifications. He had spent 7 years building it. 14. Who was the mother of King Jehu of Israel? Zibiah, Hushai, Athaliah, or Zeruiah? Zibiah. 2 Kings 10:1. Now there were in Samaria 70 sons of the house of Ahab, so Jehu wrote letters and sent them to Samaria, to the officials of Jezreel, to the elders, and to the guardians of Ahab's children. 15. In which city was Paul when he saw the vision of man saying, Come over to Macedonia and help us? Corinth, Troas, Ephesus, or Antioch? Troas. Acts 16:8-9. So they passed by Mysia and went down to Troas. During the night, Paul had a vision of a man of Macedonia, standing and begging him, Come over to Macedonia and help us. 16. Who was the first king of Judah after the kingdom was divided? Asa, Abijah, Jeroboam, or Rehoboam? Rehoboam. 1 Kings 12:17. But as for the Israelites who were living in the towns of Judah, Rehoboam still ruled over them. 17. What was the name of the wife of Potiphar who falsely accused Joseph of attempting to assault her? Zuleika, Asenath, Zipporah, or Sarah? Zuleika. Genesis 39:12. She caught him by his cloak and said, Come to bed with me. But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. 18. Who was the father of King Jehoiakim? Josiah. 2 Kings 23:34. Pharaoh Necho made Eliakim, son of Josiah, king in place of his father Josiah, and changed Eliakim's name to Jehoiakim. But he took Jehoaz and carried him off to Egypt, and there he died. 19. Who was the first king of Israel? Solomon, Saul, David, or Rehoboam? Saul. 1 Samuel 10:1. Then Samuel took a flask of olive oil and poured it on Saul's head and kissed him, saying, "Has not the Lord anointed you ruler over his inheritance?" 20. In which book of the Bible do we find the story of the sun standing still? Peter, Joshua, Andrew, or Thomas? Joshua 10:12-13. So the sun stood still and the moon stopped till the nation avenged itself on its enemies. As it is written in the book of Jashar, the sun stopped in the middle of the sky and delayed going down about a full day. 21. According to the book of Ezekiel, what kind of creature did Ezekiel see in his vision by the Kebar River? Ophanim, Leviathan, Seraphim, or Cherubim? Cherubim. Ezekiel 10:2. The Lord said to the man clothed in linen, "Go in among the wheels beneath the cherubim. Fill your hands with burning coals from among the cherubim and scatter them over the city." And as I watched, he went in. 22. How many days was Jonah in the belly of the great fish? 3, 7, 40, or 2? Three. Jonah 1:17. Now the Lord provided a huge fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. 23. Who was the girl who recognized Peter at the door when he denied knowing Jesus? Dorcas, Phoebe, Rhoda, or Lydia? Rhoda. Acts 12:13. Peter knocked at the outer entrance, and a servant named Rhoda came to answer the door. 24. Who was the wife of Nabal, who later became the wife of David after Nabal's death? Abigail, Bathsheba, Michal, or Tamar? Abigail. 1 Samuel 25:3. His name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail. She was an intelligent and beautiful woman, but her husband was surly and mean in his dealings, and he was a Calebite. 25. What was the name of the city where Jesus met the Samaritan woman at the well? Nazareth, Samaria, Sychar, or Cana? Sychar. John 4:5-6. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. 26. In which book of the Bible is the story of the prophet Balaam and his talking donkey found? Deuteronomy, Numbers, Joshua, or Judges? Numbers 22:21. Balaam got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went in with the Moabite officials. 27. What was the name of the city where Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead? Capernaum, Jericho, Bethany, or Nazareth? Bethany. John 11:1. Now a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. 28. Who was a prophet who was asked to marry a prostitute as a symbol of God's relationship with Israel? Hosea, Hobab, Reuel, or Nahum? Hosea 1:2. When the Lord began to speak through Hosea, the Lord said to him, "Go marry a promiscuous woman and have children with her, for like an adulterous wife, this land is guilty of unfaithfulness to the Lord." 29. How many chapters are there in the book of Revelation? 22. Revelation 22:21. The grace of the Lord Jesus be with God's people. Amen. 30. What was the name of the valley where David fought Goliath? Megiddo, Rephaim, Elah, or Hinnom? Elah. 1 Samuel 17:2. Saul and the Israelites assembled and camped in the valley of Elah and drew up their battle line to meet the Philistines. 31. What was the occupation of Aquila and Priscilla who befriended Paul? Fishermen, tax collectors, tent makers, or farmers? Tent makers. Acts 18:2-3. There he met a Jew named Aquila, a native of Pontus, who had recently come from Italy with his wife Priscilla. Because Claudius had ordered all Jews to leave Rome, Paul went to see them, and because he was a tent maker, as they were, he stayed and worked with them. 32. In which book of the Bible is the Song of Solomon found? Ecclesiastes, Psalms, Proverbs, or Song of Solomon? Song of Solomon. Song of Solomon 1:1. Solomon's Song of Songs. 33. Who was the king of Judah when Jerusalem was besieged by Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians? John, Jehoiakim, Hezekiah, or Zedekiah? Zedekiah. 2 Kings 25:1. So in the 9th year of Zedekiah's reign, on the 10th day of the 10th month, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, marched against Jerusalem with his whole army. He encamped outside the city and built siege works all around it. 34. What was the name of the man who replaced Judas Iscariot among the 12 apostles? Silas, Barnabas, Matthias, or Barsabbas? Matthias. Acts 1:26. Then they cast lots, and the lot fell to Matthias, so he was added to the 11 apostles. 35. Which judge of Israel made a rash vow that led to the sacrifice of his daughter? Gideon, Samson, Jephthah, or Ehud? Jephthah. Judges 11:30-31. And Jephthah made a vow to the Lord, if you give the Ammonites into my hands, whatever comes out of the door of my house to meet me when I return in triumph from the Ammonites will be the Lord's, and I will sacrifice it as a burnt offering. 36. Who was struck dead by God for touching the Ark of the Covenant? Uzziah, Achan, Korah, or Uzzah? Uzzah. 2 Samuel 6:6-7. When they came to the threshing floor of Nacon, Uzzah reached out and took hold of the ark of God because the oxen stumbled. The Lord's anger burned against Uzzah because of his irreverent act. Therefore God struck him down, and he died there beside the ark of God. 37. Who was the only woman in the Bible described as both a prophetess and a judge? Deborah, Huldah, Miriam, or Anna? Deborah. Judges 4:4. Now Deborah, a prophet, the wife of Lapidoth, was leading Israel at that time. 38. Which king of Judah was struck with leprosy for offering incense in the temple? Hezekiah, Uzziah, Jehoshaphat, or Asa? Uzziah. 2 Chronicles 26:19-20. Uzziah, who had a censer in his hand ready to burn incense, became angry. While he was raging at the priests in their presence before the incense altar in the Lord's temple, leprosy broke out on his forehead. 39. Who was the father of King Saul? Ner, Ahio, Abner, or Kish? Kish. 1 Samuel 9:1-2. there was a Benjamite, a man of standing, whose name was Kish son of Abiel, the son of Zerar, the son of Bechorath, the son of Aphiah of Benjamin. Kish had a son named Saul, as handsome a young man as could be found anywhere in Israel, and he was a head taller than anyone else. 40. Who prophesied that a virgin would conceive and bear a son named Emmanuel? Jeremiah, Zerubbabel, Nehemiah, or Isaiah? Isaiah 7:14. Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son and will call him Emmanuel. 41. Which prophet was shown a basket of ripe fruit symbolizing the impending judgment of Israel? Amos, Joel, Hosea, or Daniel? Amos 8:1-2. This is what the sovereign Lord showed me, a basket of ripe fruit. What do you see, Amos? He asked. A basket of ripe fruit, I answered. Then the Lord said to me, the time is ripe for my people Israel. I will spare them no longer. 42. Who was the Babylonian king who saw the handwriting on the wall during a feast? Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, Darius, or Artaxerxes? Belshazzar. Daniel 5:5. Suddenly the fingers of a human hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall near the lampstand in the royal palace. The king watched the hand as it wrote. 43. Which Old Testament prophet predicted the birthplace of the Messiah in Bethlehem? Isaiah, Zechariah, Jeremiah, or Micah? Micah 5:2. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times. 44. Who was the king of Judah when the book of the law was found in the temple during the reign of Hilkiah the priest? Hezekiah, Manasseh, Josiah, or Jehoiakim? Josiah. 2 Kings 22:8. Hilkiah the high priest said to Shaphan, the secretary, I have found the book of the law in the temple of the Lord. He gave it to Shaphan, who read it. 45. Which prophet used a yoke as a visual aid to represent the coming captivity of Judah under Babylon? Jeremiah 27:2. This is what the Lord said to me, make a yoke out of straps and crossbars and put it on your neck. 46. Who led a rebellion against Moses and Aaron and was swallowed by the earth along with his followers? Korah, Abiram, Dathan, or all of the above? All of the above. Numbers 16:32. And the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them and their households, and all those associated with Korah, together with their possessions. 47. Which king of Israel is known for building the city of Samaria? Ahab, Jeroboam, Omri, or Baasha? Omri. 1 Kings 16:24. He bought the hill of Samaria from Shemer for 2 talents of silver and built a city on the hill, calling it Samaria after Shemer, the name of the former owner of the hill. 48. Who prophesied that the Messiah would enter Jerusalem riding on a donkey? Zechariah, Micah, Jeremiah, or Habakkuk? Zechariah 9:9. Rejoice greatly, daughter Zion. Shout, daughter Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. 49. Who was the last king of Judah before the Babylonian exile? Jehoiakim, Josiah, Jehoiakim, or Zedekiah? Zedekiah, 2 Kings 25:7. They killed the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes. Then they put out his eyes, bound him with bronze shackles, and took him to Babylon. 50. Who was the high priest of Israel when Samuel was called by the Lord as a boy? Eli, Abiathar, Phinehas, or Herod? Eli. 1 Samuel 3:1. The boy Samuel ministered before the Lord under Eli. In those days the word of the Lord was rare. There were not many visions. 51. Which king of Israel sought to kill Elijah after the prophet pronounced a drought upon the land? Ahab, Jeroboam, Ahaziah, or Omri? Ahab. 1 Kings 18:10. As surely as the Lord your God lives, there is not a nation or kingdom where my master has not sent someone to look for you. And whenever a nation or kingdom claimed you were not there, he made them swear they could not find you. 52. Who was the only woman mentioned in the Bible as having been struck with leprosy? Miriam, Jezebel, Delilah, or Athaliah? Miriam. Numbers 12:10. When the cloud lifted from above the tent, Miriam's skin was leprous. It became as white as snow. Aaron turned toward her and saw that she had a defiling skin disease. 53. Which Old Testament prophet had a vision of a wheel within a wheel? Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Isaiah, or Zechariah? Ezekiel. Ezekiel 1:16. This was the appearance and structure of the wheels. They sparkled like topaz, and all four looked alike. Each appeared to be made like a wheel intersecting a wheel. 54. Who was the priest that anointed Solomon as king? Zadok. 1 Kings 1:39. Zadok the priest took the horn of oil from the sacred tent and anointed Solomon. Then they sounded the trumpet and all the people shouted, "Long live King Solomon." 55. Who was the first husband of Bathsheba? Uriah, Eliam, Ahithophel, or Hushai? Uriah. 2 Samuel 11:3. David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "She is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite." 56. Which prophet was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind without experiencing death? Elisha, Ezekiel, Elijah, or Isaiah? Elijah. 2 Kings 2:11. As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. 57. Who was a prophet that called down fire from heaven to consume two companies of 50 men? Elisha, Elijah, Samuel, or Isaiah? Elijah. 2 Kings 1:10. Elijah answered the captain, "If I am a man of God, may fire come down from heaven and consume you and your 50 men. Then fire fell from heaven and consumed the captain and his men. 58. Which prophet was thrown into a cistern and left to die but was later rescued by Ebed-Melech? Jeremiah, Zechariah, Jonah, or Ezekiel? Jeremiah. Jeremiah 38:6-7. So they took Jeremiah and put him into the cistern of Malchijah, the king's son, which was in the courtyard of the guard. They lowered Jeremiah by ropes into the cistern. It had no water in it. 59. Which prophet was instructed by God to eat a scroll, symbolizing the acceptance of God's words? Isaiah, Daniel, Ezekiel, or Amos? Ezekiel. Ezekiel 3:1-2. And he said to me, "Son of man, eat what is before you, eat this scroll, then go and speak to the people of Israel." So I opened my mouth and he gave me the scroll to eat. 60. Which king of Israel was responsible for killing all of King Ahab's family and the prophets of Baal? David, Jehu, Omri, or Joseph? Jehu, 2 Kings 10:11. So Jehu killed everyone in Jezreel who remained of the house of Ahab, as well as all his chief men, his close friends, and his priests, leaving him no survivor. 61. Who was a king of Israel who disguised himself in battle but was struck by an archer's arrow and died? Ahab, Jehoahaz, Jehoram, or Ahaziah? Ahab. 1 Kings 22:34. But someone drew his bow at random and hit the king of Israel between the sections of his armor. The king told his chariot driver, "Wheel around and get me out of the fighting. I've been wounded." 62. Which prophet made an iron pan a symbol of the wall of separation between himself and the people of Israel? Isaiah, Ezekiel, Amos, or Hosea? Ezekiel. Ezekiel 4:3. Then take an iron pan, place it as an iron wall between you and the city, and turn your face toward it. It will be under siege, and you shall besiege it. This will be a sign to the people of Israel. 63. Who was the prophet that shaved his head and beard as a sign of the destruction upon Jerusalem? Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, or Hosea? Ezekiel. Ezekiel 5:1. Now, son of man, take a sharp sword and use it as a barber's razor to shave your head and your beard. Then take a set of scales and divide up the hair. 64. Which prophet was instructed to bake bread over human dung as a symbol of Israel's defilement? Isaiah, Jacob, Joseph, or Ezekiel? Ezekiel. Ezekiel 4:15. Very well, he said, I will let you bake your bread over cow dung instead of human excrement. 65. Who was the prophet that called for the rebuilding of the temple along with Zechariah? Amos, Obadiah, Haggai, or Malachi? Haggai. Haggai 1:8. Go up into the mountains and bring down timber and build my house, so that I may take pleasure in it and be honored, says the Lord. 66. Which prophet spoke of a day when there would be a famine of hearing the words of the Lord? Joel, Peter, John, or Amos? Amos. Amos 8:11. The days are coming, declares the sovereign Lord, when I will send a famine through the land, not a famine of food or thirst for water, but a famine of hearing the words of the Lord. 67. Which prophet was thrown into a cistern and left to die but was later rescued by Ebed-melech? Jeremiah, Zechariah, Isaiah, or Micah? Jeremiah. Jeremiah 38:6-7. So they took Jeremiah and put him into the cistern of Malchijah, the king's son, which was in the courtyard of the guard. They lowered Jeremiah by ropes into the cistern. It had no water in it, only mud. 68. Who was a prophet who saw a vision of a flying scroll and a woman in a basket? Saul, Solomon, Zechariah, or Hezekiah? Zechariah. Zechariah 5:1-7. I looked again, and there before me was a flying scroll. Then the angel who was speaking to me came forward and said to me, Look up and see what is appearing. I asked, What is it? He replied, It is a basket. 69. Who was the first person in the Bible to be called a mighty hunter before the Lord? Nimrod, Ishmael, Esau, or Eutychus? Nimrod. Genesis 10:9. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. That is why it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. 70. Who was a prophet that rebuked David for his sin with Bathsheba? Samuel, John, Gad, or Nathan? Nathan, 2 Samuel 12:7. Then Nathan said to David, "You are the man. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I anointed you king over Israel, and I delivered you from the hand of Saul." 71. Who was a prophet that had a vision of the Ancient of Days and the Son of Man? Isaiah, Daniel, Ezekiel, or Zechariah? Daniel. Daniel 7:13. In my vision at night I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. 72. Which prophet saw a vision of 4 craftsmen and 4 horns? Herod, Amos, Zechariah, or Felix? Zechariah. Zechariah 1:20-21. Then the Lord showed me 4 craftsmen. I asked, "What are these coming to do?" He answered, "These are the horns that scattered Judah so that no one could raise their head." 73. Who was the first judge of Israel after Joshua's death? Ehud, Othniel, Gideon, or Jephthah? Othniel. Judges 3:9-10. But when they cried out to the Lord, he raised up for them a deliverer, Othniel son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, who saved them. The Spirit of the Lord came on him so that he became Israel's judge and went to war. 74. Who was a prophet that foretold the destruction of Nineveh? Zephaniah, Cyrus, Nahum, or Darius? Nahum. Nahum 1:1, a prophecy concerning Nineveh, the book of the vision of Nahum the Elkoshite. 75. Which king of Judah was buried with the donkeys as prophesied by Jeremiah? Jehoiakim, Jehoaz, Zedekiah, or Ahaziah? Jehoiakim. Jeremiah 22:19. He will have the burial of a donkey dragged away and thrown outside the gates of Jerusalem. 76. Who was a prophet that foretold the coming of a messenger who would prepare the way for the Lord? Malachi, Jochebed, Isaiah, or Zipporah? Malachi 3:1. I will send my messenger who will prepare the way before me. Then suddenly the Lord you are seeking will come to his temple. The messenger of the covenant whom you desire will come, says the Lord Almighty. 77. Which prophet saw a vision of the Lord seated on a throne with the train of his robe filling the temple? Jeremiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel, or Gamaliel? Isaiah 6:1. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord high and exalted, seated on a throne, and the train of his robe filled the temple. 78. Who was a prophet that pronounced God's judgment against Edom? Zephaniah, Timothy, Amos, or Obadiah? Obadiah 1:10. Because of the violence against your brother Jacob, you will be covered with shame. You will be destroyed forever. 79. Which prophet was sent to prophesy against the Assyrian capital, Nineveh, but initially fled to Tarshish? Amos, Nahum, Jonah, or Micah? Amos. Jonah 1:1-3. The word of the Lord came to Jonah son of Amittai. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed to Tarshish. 80. Which prophet known as the weeping prophet wrote the book of Lamentations? Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, or Hosea? Jeremiah. Lamentations 1:1. How deserted lies the city, once so full of people. How like a widow is she, who once was great among the nations. She, who was queen among the provinces, has now become a slave. That's all our questions for today. Let us know how you did down below and share your score with your friends and family to compare them. And we'll see you guys in the next one.